Tom Bower, has just released what many people are already calling the biggest royal exposé of the entire decade. Not a rumor, not speculation, but a revelation so sharp and so deeply disturbing that it forces us to look again at everything we thought we knew about Meghan, and especially about little Lilibet. Because for the first time, we do not just have questions. We do not just have timelines that don't match. We now have what sources are calling proof. And in 2026, as Bower's investigation reaches its most explosive chapter yet, even a witness has stepped out of the shadows to speak. Someone who claims to have seen things the public was never meant to notice. Someone who alleges Meghan offered to pay her so that her own daughter could play a camera appearance role for Lilibet, who, according to this revelation, may not exist in the way the world has been told. And tonight, here on Royal Report Daily, we are opening that door. This is not a gentle story. This is the kind of truth that shakes the very walls of the Sussex narrative and challenges every single one of us to follow the trail all the way into the dark. So take a breath, because once you hear what Tom Bower has uncovered and what this witness has now revealed in 2026, you will understand why people are saying this expose does not just raise questions, it changes everything. Tom Bower is not a new name in this story. For those who follow his work, he is one of the most feared investigative authors in Britain, a man who has spent decades going after the world's most powerful figures and winning. His 2022 book Revenge laid out a detailed pattern of social climbing, image management, and calculated ambition. When the Sussex camp responded by calling his work a deranged conspiracy, Bower didn't back down. He kept digging, and now, in 2026, his follow-up research has produced what insiders are describing as his most documented and most dangerous work yet. Because this time, he isn't just talking about social circles or PR strategy. He is talking about the children, about Lilibet specifically, and about a series of medical, legal, and visual inconsistencies that, when placed side by side, paint a picture the palace and the Sussex team have never been forced to address directly until now. The first crack in this story begins with an image so dramatic it almost feels like it came from a movie script. Harry and Meghan leaving a hospital during a global lockdown. The streets empty, the world silent, and in their hands they say, a tiny package, the remains of an unborn child. According to their own account, they carried this small soul to a secret place beneath a wide banyan tree, a sacred, hidden spot known only to them, a place where Harry says he dug into the ground with his bare hands and gently placed the package into the earth. It is a heartbreaking image, and yet something about it starts to shake when examined closely. Sources familiar with the area quietly point out that banyan trees do not grow where the couple was living at the time. Medical professionals also insist that no hospital, especially during strict COVID rules, would release fetal remains for a backyard burial. Nor would a husband be permitted inside the emergency wing during a miscarriage. Nor would any burial, even of early pregnancy tissue, be legal on private land without official government permission. But the story was told with such emotion and such carefully constructed detail that many people simply didn't question the gaps at first. Not until the second crack appeared. The math begins quietly, almost innocently. Harry and Meghan say the miscarriage happened in July 2020, and then less than a year later, they welcomed a full-term daughter just 11 months later. But when you subtract healing time, recovery periods, and the actual months required for a full pregnancy to develop, the timeline starts to collapse. Not by a small margin. By entire months. Women around the world began doing the calculations themselves in 2026 as Bower's findings circulated, and the numbers simply did not work. Even more strangely, their son Archie was still a toddler at the time, and sources say Meghan was lifting him daily. Something that becomes genuinely difficult during late pregnancy or early post-miscarriage recovery. And yet, instead of addressing or explaining the timeline, the couple simply moved forward. A new baby, a new announcement, a new chapter written neatly over the remains of the old one. But the numbers stayed exactly the same, cold, sharp, and unchanged. And in 2026, those numbers are being looked at more carefully than ever before. To understand the medical pressure behind this story, Bower turned not to gossip or online theories, but to fertility specialists. Voices with nothing to gain and no reason to exaggerate. According to medical experts referenced in his research, at Meghan's age, during those pregnancies, A woman faces a 30 to 40% chance of miscarriage, a 50 to 60% chance of chromosomal abnormalities, and a miscarriage that almost always happens early, quietly, and is handled medically without ceremony. Not a dramatic emergency, not a same-day hospital release with a tiny package, not a secret burial beneath a tree that botanical experts say doesn't even grow in that region. Even more critically, experts say stress does not cause miscarriage in the way Harry publicly described. It does not come from moving houses. It does not erupt from a newspaper lawsuit. It does not appear because a woman did not sleep enough. Miscarriage is deeply emotional, yes, but medically, it is almost always caused by natural biological factors completely beyond anyone's control. So when Harry publicly stated, "I believe my wife suffered a miscarriage because of what the media did," medical professionals were genuinely concerned because the message inside that claim is dangerous. It suggests miscarriage is someone's fault. It suggests a specific person or institution can be blamed. And those who work daily with grieving women know this is not how miscarriage works. This is not how the human body works. And in 2026, with Bauer's documentation now circulating through serious media circles, this is not being allowed to pass without scrutiny anymore. When Meghan published her miscarriage story, thousands of women felt not comfort, but something colder, something closer to disbelief, because these were women who had lived the real experience. They knew the silence, the shock, the heavy private truth that stays long after the moment has passed. And in their responses, which Bauer carefully documented in his research, they spoke plainly. Early miscarriages do not create dramatic hospital scenes. Remains are not handed to families for personal burial. During strict COVID restrictions, partners were frequently not permitted into examination rooms at all. And the emotional response Meghan described, singing lullabies through pain, felt deeply unfamiliar to many women who had genuinely lived through it. One woman who had suffered multiple miscarriages said reading Meghan's account felt disturbing, as if something deeply sacred had been turned into a performance. Another said she feared Meghan had added unnecessary shame to miscarriage by blaming external stress and outside forces, a message that goes directly against everything doctors tell grieving mothers who already carry guilt they do not deserve. Through all of these accounts ran one quiet but powerful theme. The story Meghan told did not match the reality these women knew from their own bodies. It was not the grief they questioned. Grief is personal, and it belongs to everyone differently. It was the framing, the specific details, the timing, and the way the loss seemed to be packaged and released with careful, deliberate polish. This was no longer just a story. It was becoming a pattern, and that pattern pointed directly to the next source of doubt. To understand the questions surrounding Meghan's pregnancies more deeply, Bauer looked to people who knew her before the palaces, the cameras, and the global attention arrived. Her childhood friend, Naki Prati, stepped forward years ago with claims that opened an entirely new layer of this story. According to her, Meghan had serious fertility concerns long before royal life ever began. She talked about freezing her eggs. She spoke about endometriosis, a condition that can make natural pregnancy extremely difficult and painful. And most shocking of all, Prati claimed Meghan had undergone a hysterectomy at a young age. Another friend, unnamed but willing to speak, supported similar claims, saying Meghan had talked openly about severe pain and significant medical decisions that may have fundamentally changed her ability to conceive naturally. None of these claims have been officially confirmed, but what makes them difficult to dismiss is straightforward. They came from people who were once genuinely close to her, people who put their own names and reputations at real risk by speaking. When combined with shifting baby bump photographs, broken timelines, medical contradictions, dramatically retold stories, and a complete absence of public medical verification, these statements create a puzzle that simply does not fit the story shown to the world. And in 2026, as Bauer's full investigation circulates, more people are putting these pieces together than ever before. The next chapter of this exposé is even more unsettling, because the moment of doubt allegedly came not from outsiders or critics, but from Harry himself. Every story has a moment when the mask slips and the truth leaks through. For Meghan and Harry, Tom Bauer believes that moment came during the 2018 royal tours of Australia. Sources close to the tour described tensions so thick they filled every room. Staff whispered about last-minute changes, sudden demands, and a tour meant to celebrate Harry slowly becoming something else entirely. But the most shocking moment, according to witnesses, happened behind closed doors. During an argument overheard by multiple people, Harry, tense and visibly confused, allegedly asked Meghan a question no husband should ever have to ask. "Are you really pregnant?" A sentence heavy enough to freeze the air. A sentence that reveals doubt, fear, and something much deeper running beneath the surface. Sources say the argument erupted because Meghan had announced her pregnancy during the tour without prior approval or planning, turning a royal event into her own personal spotlight. The result was a husband who appeared strained, distracted, and, as many observers noted, deeply unhappy for much of the trip. This moment matters enormously. Because if Harry himself questioned the pregnancy, what did he see? What did he sense? And why did that question escape from him at all? The cracks were spreading, and in 2026, Bauer's documentation suggests they run far deeper than anyone previously reported. This is where the story stops being merely confusing and becomes genuinely frightening. According to a public accusation made by a mother in Costa Rica, Meghan allegedly hired her young daughter to pose as Lilibet during a trip. This claim did not come from an anonymous online rumor. It came from a woman who used her real name, stating clearly that Meghan did not pay her as promised, and that no children were actually traveling with the couple. Sources say Meghan and Harry left the location early and departed without settling their hotel bill. Sources also noted that the child photographed during this trip looked noticeably different from Lilibet in official royal photographs, and this is not the only deeply strange detail that Bauer has highlighted in 2026. Another unexplained inconsistency emerged: a screenshot of a palace announcement stating that Archie was born by surrogate. Many people reported seeing it live, in real time. But later, a different version appeared, with one key difference. Instead of Kensington Palace, the source was listed as Frogmore Cottage. Two versions of the exact same announcement. No explanation offered, no source identified, and neither version was ever acknowledged or addressed by the palace. In 2026, digital researchers and archivists, the same independent investigators who have been quietly digging through scrubbed social media accounts, deactivated blogs, and archived web pages, have begun circulating both versions of this announcement alongside their own documented findings. The Sussex PR machine has not responded directly, and that silence, as Bauer himself has noted, is becoming part of the evidence. This part of the story is not based on guesswork. These are public claims tied to real names, real screenshots, and real unanswered inconsistencies that exist in the documented record. All of this leads to the final and most devastating chapter, the very heart of Tom Bauer's Arding Arlo because once the pregnancy stories begin to twist, the bump photographs shift, the timelines break apart, and the children appear in ways that cannot be independently confirmed. Only one question remains. Here the story stops whispering and starts speaking clearly, because every strange detail, every medical contradiction, every claim from former friends and brave witnesses, every inconsistency in the official record leads to one unavoidable question: who is Lilibet, really? Tom Bauer's revelations did not create this mystery. They only shined a powerful and documented light on what was already there, hidden beneath polished interviews, carefully chosen images, and a decade of aggressive narrative management. Think about everything laid out in this investigation. A miscarriage story filled with medically impossible details. A pregnancy timeline too compressed to work biologically. Fertility experts saying the explanations break basic biology. A husband who may have questioned the pregnancy himself during a royal tour. Baby bump photographs that appear to shift and change shape in ways that confused even casual observers. A child who allegedly had a paid stand-in during a foreign trip. Royal announcements that appeared online and then disappeared without any explanation. Each detail alone is curious, but together, placed side by side in Bauer's 2026 documentation, they form a shadow. The clear outline of a secret that someone worked very hard to keep hidden. And that shadow falls directly and squarely over the name Lilibet Diana Mountbatten. Because if the pregnancies were not what they appeared to be, if the timelines were deliberately altered, if former close friends spoke truth about surgeries and biological limitations, if public inconsistencies point to a pattern of careful and deliberate control, then the question about Lilibet is not cruel. It is not unfair. It is not invented by enemies or driven by hatred. It is necessary. Necessary for the integrity of the royal line. Necessary for the historical record. Necessary for the story that Meghan and Harry told the entire world. And in 2026, with the palace conducting its own quiet formal review of Archie and Lilibet's birth documentation, baptism records, and succession eligibility, the timing of Bauer's expose could not be more significant, because the institution is now asking the exact same questions that independent researchers, medical professionals, and former associates have been quietly raising for years. And this time, the questions are being asked not in comment sections or online forums, but in the formal, documented language of constitutional law. And so we end not with final answers, but with an open door, because mysteries like this one do not simply disappear. They wait, quietly and patiently, until someone finally pulls the last remaining thread. And when that thread is pulled, the truth about Lilibet may not only change her story, it may permanently change the entire Sussex legacy, and the world's understanding of one of the most carefully constructed royal narratives in modern history. That is where Tom Bauer's next investigation begins. And that is where Royal Report Daily will be, right there with every new development, every new document, and every new revelation as it surfaces. If this investigation opened your eyes, make sure you subscribe to Royal Report Daily right now. Hit that notification bell. Share this video with everyone who deserves to know the truth, because the story of Lilibet and the questions surrounding her is only just beginning to reach the surface, and we will be here when it does.